Also want to do an update about the absolute versus relative ethics theory. And this was definitely not finished yet, but I feel like I'm also coming up on the conclusion of this one as well. Essentially, if you're familiar with my previous theory about minesweeping and crowd surfing and how relative ethics allow you to be much more expedient in social situations than absolute ethics do, and I think that that is true and right. And I've been thinking a lot about what the implications of absolute ethics and relative ethics are. It's like absolute ethics, basically, you might say the purpose of absolute ethics is to give your life meaning, and the purpose of relative ethics is to make your life easy. And so absolute ethics essentially allow you to have community, and also, but the way that they allow you to have community is by taking responsibility for other people. The entire world becomes your community, and you therefore have to take responsibility for how your actions affect other people's actions. And with relative ethics, you only have responsibility for yourself, which means that it's kind of weird and paradoxical, because absolute ethics inherently rope the entire world into community, but in so doing create a weird sort of gridlock where nobody can move because they're worried about how their movements will affect everyone else. But then you have the opposite sort of problem with relative ethics. You only have responsibility for yourself, which means that you can interact with other people really easily, but you have the opposite sort of problem where you can interact with other people, but also they don't matter as much because you don't take responsibility for them. And in fact, you might say that they don't matter really at all. And so it's kind of relative ethics turn everyone else into objects, like NPCs, and absolute ethics make everyone else just as relevant as yourself. And they both have opposite sort of strengths and weaknesses. And obviously you don't, like, one of the reasons I've been working on this is because I think that there's this huge overcorrection in our culture, especially coming from the universities, that there's an insistence that absolute ethics are the only ethics that should be used, and I don't think that that's right. I think we need a balance of being able to use both of them. And so there's this weird sort of situation where if I don't really know how to prescribe they should be used. I think that maybe a good analogy would be that relative ethics should be used for traversal, moving between the domains of life, because they are good for movement. They make everything easier, and when you're not dealing with something that you really care about, then you want everything to be easier. But when you are dealing with something that you really care about, then you want to actually care about it and invest in it and take responsibility for it. And so I don't know how to necessarily separate those things out yet, but it definitely feels like you want to use relative ethics unless you're dealing with something that you really care about, which sort of insinuates that you want to use relative ethics more of the time. It seems like you'll have a better life and you'll be more efficient if you use relative ethics more of the time. But I don't really know how to do that personally, because I feel like there's a situation that if you use relative ethics, then you don't really care about anything. And I do think that it's important to stop caring about stuff. This kind of comes back to what I was saying in my other video about practical optimism. You want to go big or go home, and often what that means is giving up your fear of failure. And so you do want to be able to walk this interesting line between giving up your fear of failure, but also not giving up your fear of failure so much that it forces you or causes you to fail. And so that's where I'm at with these absolute versus relative ethics stuff. I think that it's pretty obvious you want to use relative ethics more often. I don't know necessarily what the mechanism is for that, but I'm working on it. And I think even just the awareness that this is the right direction to move in is powerful. And that's it. We'll send more updates when I have them. Also, I committed to posting 2 philosophy videos a week, so I'm going to be doing that, and also 1 vlog video a week. And I'll be sending more updates. Talk to all of you soon.